Hi, I am Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, and I'm joined with my colleagues in government and community leaders. I have with us is Devorah Habassan from the Jewish Children Museum in the Crown Heights community, Councilwoman Lori Cumbo, who represents that community, Senator Jesse Hamilton, the Senator of the 20th, Jamani Williams, and our good friend Evan from the ADL, who's also part of the coalition, who's here today. And we're here to Councilman Mark Traeger, also the delegation leader of Brooklyn, and he has a special connection with what took place in Crown Heights. We're here on the corner of Rockaway and Dean. It was our understanding when we first called the press conference, there was a similar incident where a young man in his 20s lost his life. It was unclear if it was a homicide. Thus far, the police department's initial investigation has determined that it was a possible suicide. And when you look at what happened in Crown Heights, the second stabbing of really of an unknown nature. It was only several months ago where a young Hasidic young man was walking through Crown Heights on Eastern Parkway, and he was stabbed. And yesterday we had a similar incident where a young man was walking on Empire Boulevard in the same Crown Heights community, and he was stabbed. And it was the coming together of community leaders that stated that Crown Heights is a rich community, a diverse community, and we have come too far to allow any form of attacks of this nature to take place in our community. And we want to come together, a cross-section of Jewish leaders and African-American, Caribbean leaders, and say we're united and ensuring that Crown Heights is a safe place. And we're asking for anyone that has any information related to this incident to please report it to the police so that we can find this culprit and bring him to justice and ensure that he's prosecuted to the full extent of the law. The incident appeared to have not been in any way provoked. The young Jewish male was walking, going on his business when he was approached from the rear and he was stabbed in the back. He's now in the hospital with a collapsed lung. We're all praying for him and his family to survive this awful and horrific incident. But the only way we could combat this is whenever any form of attack of this nature rear its ugly head, is that those who are responsible, those who understand how important it is for Crown Heights to live in peace and harmony, for us to come out and state that this is something that is not accepted or tolerated in our community. We also want to draw attention to the mental health aspect of what we're seeing taking place over the last few days. In Staten Island, several members of a family were stabbed. Two of the children lost their lives. Even the young man here who committed suicide. All of these have a common thread of a mental health aspect, and it is imperative that our city and state lawmakers come together and find a very viable solution of ensuring that we start addressing the issues around mental health. We've come too far to rid our communities of guns. We don't want to now have guns replaced with razors and knives. The large numbers of slashes that took place on our transit system, the large number of stabbings that have taken place in the use of criminal behavior by using a knife or razor. It is not what our city and our community is looking towards as we move forward in the upcoming weeks and upcoming months. And so we're coming together as one community here on the corner of Dean and Rockaway. And the same passion is on the corner of Kingston and Empire, where a young Hasidic young man was stabbed. We're sending a strong message that throughout our entire community, we're combined as one community. So I want to call a good friend and a very strong voice for bringing our community together, the head of the Jewish Children's Museum, Devorah Havison. Devorah?
Thank you, Eric. I'm standing here today as a victim of violence. My son was murdered in New York City in 1994. Society has to take stock. I was up all night twisting and turning because I just can't bear waking up and hearing this day in, day out, whether it's slashings on the subways or the suicide that happened right here in Brownsville. This is New York City. Every life is sacred.
That's right.
And we must take stock, whether it's lawmakers that I'm surrounded with that need to change laws and to confront the issue, as the Borough President said, of mental illness or hatred that comes from the heart. People need to recognize when people slash, murder with guns, or whatever it may be for reasons of hate, we must stop them. And we're here today joined together because we care. We care very, very much. And I know the pain of what it means. With that, every day I walk around and I feel the pain in my empty heart, and I miss my child every single day. And I know other mothers, other family members feel the same. We go home at night and we cry every night when we go to sleep for our lost members of our family who are gone from us forever. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I think it's so important that only a mother could truly express that. And representing the area, Councilwoman Laurie Cumbo.
Thank you. Good morning. I want to thank Borough President Eric Adams for his leadership. And we are gathered here today because what we want to make sure is that we send a loud message that these forms of violence that are happening throughout New York City are not our new norm. We will not just sit back idly and just say, oh, another stabbing, oh, another suicide. We cannot allow ourselves to go backwards. We are moving forward. And when these horrific incidents happen, it's important that we raise our voices, that we come together in acts of love, in unity, to demand that we put an end to the hatred that has happened throughout our city. We have to recognize that New York City is a very diverse city. Anyone that's living here in New York City has to have a love for people, has to have a love for community and for one another. And as the Borough President has said, mental illness is such a challenge within our city. And I applaud our First Lady, Chirlane McCray, who has made mental health a major part of the de Blasio administration. However, we have to make sure that what has been put forward is implemented quickly, because New Yorkers are suffering. And as our Borough President often says, hurt people hurt people. And we have to make sure that this city is safe. I want to draw attention to Crown Heights. I am so pleased that Kings County Hospital has been able to come together to make sure that the young man that was stabbed, who is now in stable condition, and although he is in physical stable condition, the horrific incident of being stabbed is something that you will never recover from mentally. You will always live with that and have a sense of fear. His family will always fear for his life and that of their own life. We have a beautiful opportunity in this country to have a beautiful world, but we continue to destroy it with these acts, and we have to make sure that we stand up for one another as a unified voice. As chair of the Women's Issues Committee, I am actually horrified by what we've seen in Staten Island. Acts of intimate violence continue to rear their ugly heads here in New York City, but what we know is that in Staten Island, acts of domestic violence are certainly on the rise. And we have to make sure that we put the resources and the funding and all of the support systems in place. The Family Justice Center is going to be opening in Staten Island, and we certainly need to make sure that that moves forward quickly. I want to send my condolences also to the Cutler family, because this incident, as we know, in the United States, there have been more women that have died from domestic violence issues than there have been killed since 9/11, the war in Afghanistan, and the war in Iraq. If we combine all of those together, it still would not equal the number of women that have been killed at the hands of their domestic partners since 9/11. This is a serious issue in our communities, and we have to make sure that this administration and all throughout the country make sure that there are stiffer penalties, that we stand up for our women, that we stand up for our children, and we say, as Deborah Halberstam said, all lives are sacred, and we have to make sure that our women and children are protected in the city of New York. We have to make sure that they are no longer vulnerable, and we have to make sure that we continue to put forth the resources to make sure that families, like in this one, who have filed domestic violence reports, have those incidents addressed and that they're given all of the resources that they need. I want to also make sure that we come to an agreement with us working together collaboratively throughout the 5 boroughs. And what happened here in Brownsville, again, it echoes the issues around mental health. We have to make sure that these slashings that are happening, that are either self-inflicted or being inflicted onto others, we have to make sure that that ends in the city of New York. We can no longer live in a city where we have to fear for our lives, coming out in broad daylight, coming out in the evenings, going to work. We have to be a safe city. So I stand with my colleagues. I am so pleased that we are sending a message of love that is stronger than any of the hatred and any of the violence that has been perpetuated throughout our city, and we have to continue those acts of good faith and love and unity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're joined by our good friend Evan, who represents the ADL, and he'll be followed by Senator Hamilton and Jumaane Williams, and our district leader Davis will close.
Thank you, Borough President Adams. Thank you, Lori Cumbo. Thank you all the leaders for being here. You know, we hate having to come together for these kind of incidents. And as Borough President Adams said, we were here only in November because of another stabbing that took place in Crown Heights. And enough is enough. It has to end. Whether the perpetrator's mental illness, whether it's bias, whatever it is, all lives are sacred.
That's right.
And we, all people, all groups should be able to live their lives without fear of being attacked or stabbed. Whether it's because of their religious beliefs, whether it's because of their color of their skin, or because somebody wasn't necessarily taken care of because of the mental health crisis that they're facing. And I think it's critical that we come together, and I know we are, and we need to continue as a borough, as a city, to come together to work through these issues, all these issues, so we can all come together so these things we don't have to come together for these incidents. We can come together for better things, for happier things. The ADL is committed to trying to help. The incident took place in Crown Heights. Our thoughts are with the family. We put together a $5,000 reward for any information that could help with the arrest. But it's more than just the traditional Orthodox community. It's about all the minority groups in the city. And we all need to come together and stop hate and do what we can to build bridges, create dialogue, and stop this circle of hate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank Borough President Eric Adams for bringing us here this morning, and my colleagues in government for standing here today. My name is Jesse Hamilton, New York State Senator, and I'm also the ranker for mental health for New York State. Our prayers go out for the young man who was stabbed in Crown Heights and to the family of the young man who committed suicide. As the ranker for mental health in New York State, we have just introduced groundbreaking legislation on Mental Health 101, myself and Assemblyman Marcos Crespo. The legislation would have mandate that all teachers in New York State take classes in mental health to give young children access to psychiatrists, psychologists, and mental health social workers, which we have a shortage of. Many people are suffering in silence in our community, and they're crying out for help. And so we have to get them the resources that they need.
That's right.
And so here today, we're unified as one group to make sure that the people who need the help get what they need. Many people in the communities of color think of it as mental health as a stigma, but it's a disease that can be treated. And we have to get the word out to our community to work together. So we have an advocacy group with Brookdale Hospital, Kings County Hospital, Downstate Hospital, and we're working together to get the word out that it's okay to get psychiatric help.
That's right.
There's not a stigma to get help, and we must spread that word because too many of us are suffering in silence. So this is just the beginning of getting the word out to people in our community. And thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. I also want to thank the Borough President for bringing us all together. It's cold, but we all thought of how important this was to make sure we were out here anyway. New York City is a beautiful mosaic of a whole lot of people. I can go in my community and get some roti and some regular, not too far from each other. But attached with that diversity has always been people who did vicious things. It's unfortunate because all violence is abhorrent. You shouldn't commit violence, period. It does that extra twist when you do it just because you don't like the other person. That's a very frustrating thing to understand. If you're walking down the street, not doing anything to anyone, and someone stabs you in your back because apparently they don't like you. It has happened before, so I can't say that's not who we are. But I also know that who we are is making sure that we push back against it. And had this happened many years ago, it might have been the type of thing that could have drove communities apart. I'm so happy that we've reached a point where it's bringing communities together to make sure that we will never be driven apart. And that kind of violence will not separate us. It would only make us go stronger. And if you're a transgender woman from Harlem, or a Jewish person in Crown Heights, or a black person in Flatbush, you have the right to live your life how you want to live it, without someone accosting you and bringing violence to who you are. So I'm proud that we're here, continuing the tradition of love over hate. I'm proud that we're talking about the mental health services that are needed. If you have these thoughts, before you act on it, ask someone for help. Tell someone that you're having these thoughts before you act on it. Call one of your elected officials. Go to your church, your synagogue, or your mosque. Tell a friend, tell a parent. Speak to someone before you act on these impulses. We want to help you. But I will say this, it says something about you, not the person you're harming, that there's a problem. We want to try to fix it before you have to held accountable to law enforcement. We'll do everything that we can. The services are here. I'm so happy to hear about what the senator is putting forward, that we're starting to put this into the schools because people are suffering in silence. But we do know that as long as we're here, the violence will not win and will not go by with just our silence. Thank you.
That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Borough President, to all my colleagues here in government and advocates. I want to say and echo the comments we've heard. We will not allow these senseless acts of violence to define who we are here in New York and here in Brooklyn. I also want to echo the comments of my colleague, Councilman Williams. This is an attack against every single peace-loving Brooklynite and New Yorker. Whether you are a victim here in Brownsville, whether you're a victim in Crown Heights, whether you're a victim of a shooting in the west end of Coney Island, that's an attack against every single person who loves this city, who loves this borough. And I just want to say very, very plainly, we are a city that is very inclusive, very tolerant, that rallies people together. So these attacks attack the essence of New York.
That's right.
They attack the essence of what it means to be a person from the greatest borough here in New York. So we all have a role to play. We have to make sure that we have additional police resources. We have to make sure that we have our DA's office working together with us. But as my colleagues pointed out, that alone cannot solve this problem. There is no government program in the world that can match the power of a family and a community loving one another and supporting one another during times like this.
That's right.
And I want to humanize this for one moment. That stabbing victim in Crown Heights is the son of a prominent rabbi in Seagate in my district. He had just gotten married last week. His shul was devastated by Superstorm Sandy. During that storm, his family helped so many people in need in Coney Island and Seagate. And we're going to double down on our efforts to help him rebuild that temple, to help rebuild and heal an entire community. And we will stand in solidarity with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good morning. As the My name is Jeffrey Davis. I'm the district leader of the 43rd Assembly District in Crown Heights. I'm the founder of the James E. Davis Stop Violence Foundation, and I'm a victim / survivor of a violent act. My brother, Councilman James E. Davis, was gunned down inside City Hall, July 3rd, 2003. I stand with you. My condolences always. This act is a terrible, terrible act that families have to survive and overcome, which we never do completely. We rally around crying out time and time again to stop the violence. For the last 20 years, we, my family and I, have been crying out, love yourself, stop the violence. This is amazing what Senator Jesse Hamilton is introducing up in Albany with teachers taking the mental health course. It has to be done as well in the community, on the street, on the ground. So we stand on the ground if we have to go door to door, addressing this message of loving yourself and stop the violence. Every aspect is here. Legislators, organizers, the borough president, we all stand together collectively. Yes, we are not letting this act of violence change us. We're not letting this act of violence take us in a different direction, but we're going forward and continue to cry out, love yourself, stop the violence, from the state level, from the city level, from the borough president's level, from our organizers like myself and Deborah. We're going to continue fighting and saying, love yourself, stop the violence. God bless.
That's right.
Thank you. And we want to just really let the community know that the person who did the stabbing several months ago on Eastern Parkway is still at large. This person who committed the stabbing yesterday is still at large. We have to come together and find the guilty party and make sure they're brought to justice. As long as they're out there with a knife in their hand, there is a potential victim that can also encounter them. We're thankful that this young man is receiving the necessary medical care that he deserves, but we don't want another victim. We must find this person who's responsible for this stabbing. And I want to thank the ADL for putting up the $5,000 reward. Hopefully, if anything else, that would encourage people to come forward and report this incident. Thank you. We'll answer any questions if you have at this time. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
There are fewer questions when it's called that.
You better believe it. You're not even shivering. Fine, thank you.